What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Powerhouse Mentality Podcast. I'm your host. I'm Caitlin Kenneth Smith, and today's episode is a really cool one because I sit down with Ben from PricePlow, somebody who has become one of the biggest voices in the supplement industry when it comes to education, innovation, and actually helping push the industry forward, and someone who I'm blessed to call a friend and a mentor. We talked about everything from ghost energy and the evolution of supplements to fear-mongering around ingredients, creatine gummies, GLP-1s, hydration products, industry regulation, content creation, and what's really happening behind the scenes in sports nutrition. Ben also shares how he went from working at GNC and Vitamin Shoppe to helping shape trends across the supplement industry through PricePlow, consulting, and even advocacy work in Washington, D.C. If you're someone who loves supplements, energy drinks, fitness content, or you just want a better understanding of where the industry is heading, this episode is packed with valuable insight. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I love doing podcasts, but I'm very rarely not a host, so I'm really excited to chat today.
I know, and I love having somebody who has a podcast be on a podcast because I feel like you just hold the conversation a little bit better and you're less stressed.
Podcasting is like a dance, is what I've learned, and you have to let the other person lead sometimes. You have to ask questions back and forth, so I totally know what you mean. Although I like having newbies on the podcast as long as they have something to talk about, but there's definitely a cadence that people who podcast know.
Yeah, the worst is when you get somebody on the podcast where you're like dragging questions out of them and you have to really dig deep so that they can elaborate more instead of just, yeah or no.
Yeah, we have a lot of researchers on our podcast. So Mike and I have gotten really good at dragging things out of people who are not marketers or content creators. There was one podcast where we worked with this one researcher who he did a lot of really incredible data on some really powerful ingredients that we all kind of love, but it was a 2-hour podcast and we didn't get him to open up until the last 45 minutes. And when we hit 2 hours, Mike and I are messaging on the side. We're like, I don't want to get off this podcast. I want to keep going.
Sometimes you gotta. But
Yeah.
Before we get into it, I shall crack because I wanted to save it for the mic.
I have to apologize. I already cracked mine.
It's okay. It's okay. I stared at it for a while. I got some 7-Up Ghost today.
What a flavor.
What a great flavor. The only poor feedback that I've heard from it is somebody telling me that it's so mid, it tastes like 7-Up. Yeah, that's the point. If you don't like 7-Up, then not for you. And I had somebody tell me that it tastes like a flat soda, which I don't get at all.
I don't get that at all because Ghost actually on a scientific basis has higher carbonation on the scale of carbonation. So that's funny. When people first started hearing about 7-Up, I heard a lot of people say 7-Up's kind of a boring flavor. And I don't know if I necessarily agree, but I understand their perspective on it, just being like a lemon lime. But it's a little sweeter than normal 7-Up. I think it's better than 7-Up personally.
I tried it against the 7-Up Zero. Better than 7-Up Zero for sure. Has way more flavor. So it's probably more similar to a standard 7-Up, but I'm not drinking calories for a review. So, But I do understand the boringness people get with it, like the lemon lime, but I truly believe it's a catalyst for more.
Yeah, I think this is something that a lot of people are going to see with Ghost, is that in these next few years, they're going to lean in a lot more on the daily drinker vibe of flavors. Not that they're getting away from fun, exciting flavors, but as their distribution increases, they have to do flavors that people are going to want to drink every day. And it's kind of like a funny thing, like Dan, the founder, no longer the owner, but CEO of Ghost, and I had this funny conversation like 6 months ago. We were like, it's not that I don't like Sour Patch Kids anymore. It's just I don't want to drink something that sweet every single day. So something like a 7-Up is going to be more daily.
100% agree with that. Now, before we get into all the supplement talk and everything like that, I wanted to allow you to give the people a little bit of an introduction on who you are and what you do.
Sure. I never know where to start, honestly, because I do a lot of different things. I'm
Master of all, I would say.
Thank you. I'm a full-time content creator in dietary supplements, the nutrition space, functional beverage, and food, but I'm also a consultant on the back end. So I get the pleasure of not just getting to be like a speaker for the industry. Mike, my business partner in PricePlow, calls me the face of the industry. That's a bit much, but I understand where he's coming from. But I also get to help dictate the trends in the industry, not just through our content, but through our consulting when we get to make products and formulas or give feedback to brands and ingredient companies. I like to say that we actually do the thing that we talk about. When something I'm very proud of with our content is that we don't just armchair, like Monday armchair for the discussion. We really do get in the weeds and seeds. I travel all around the US working with brands and helping them improve their flavors, their formulas, or their marketing. So when it comes to dietary supplements, functional beverages like energy drinks or functional foods, we're like a one-stop shop for anything in the space, which it's an absolute pleasure. I get to travel and do pretty much anything I want to in supplements. So there's a lot more to it. I'm sure we'll talk about in the next hour.
Yeah, for sure. And the cool part is that I feel like if anybody's in the supplement or the sports nutrition world on social media, then they know your face. They know PricePlow. How did you guys how did you, I guess we'll start there. How did you initially get into supplements? Was it just, I'm into fitness, so now I get into supplements?
Yeah. So I was a really skinny kid growing up. I graduated high school at 170 pounds. And so in college, I really wanted to get bigger. So I got into lifting. It was like very bodybuilding thought process, but I eventually became a power lifter. And through powerlifting, I just fell in love with sports nutrition. And I was going to Rutgers for dietetics, but I originally worked at GNC for a few years. I bounced around the New Jersey stores. And then I moved to Vitamin Shoppe. And one day when I was working at Vitamin Shoppe at the end of the day, I was closing up and there was a guy in the store who was like, I'm not buying anything. I just want to look around. So I closed the door, locked it behind him and let him walk around, whatever. And he started asking me a couple different questions about quality of stuff in the room. And he asked me, the big question was, he asked me, what was the worst product in this store? And I articulated to him why this one particular product was the most misleading and lowest quality. And I didn't know who he was. He offered me a job on the spot. Is Mark Glazier, the owner of NutriBio.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So he gave me his card. He's, you ever want a job? Because he was like, you know way too much for a retail employee, which at the time it really was. And it was funny because he asked me how I knew all of this. And much to the detriment of my parents paying for college, I told him it was the internet. I basically learned everything on the internet, even though I was going to college to become a registered dietitian. So I went to work for NutriBio. I dropped out of college, went to work for NutriBio, and started in customer service. Worked my way up to product specialist, so I was leading the customer service when it came to product questions. I ended up helping launch the wholesale basically division for NutriBio. I was really early on in the development of how they went from they were a mail order company for 15 years.
Really?
And then they wanted to get into wholesale. So I helped launch Vitamin Shoppe, GNC and bodybuilding.com, which required an incredible amount of travel. And then after that, I became a key accounts manager. And then I moved into marketing and did a few marketing campaigns for them that are still kind of part of their major pillars of their branding now. So it was really cool because in the course of like 4 years, I was traveling at least once a month as a 24-year-old traveling for a fast-growing company. It was just a ton of fun. I got to travel to every division of GNC in America and work with GNC managers and educate them on proprietary blends, ingredient quality, formulas, and stuff like that. So at the time, NutriBio was one of 3 non-proprietary clinically dosed pre-workouts in the major space, maybe 4. You'd say it was Jim Stoppani, Caged, NutriBio, and I'd say like maybe Nutrex Outlift at the time. Those were the only 3.2 grams of beta alanine, 6 grams of citrulline like type products. Everything else was like micro dosed, high stim type stuff. So this was
all the prop blends.
Yeah, this was ushering in like a big scoop pre-workout phase outside of the smaller ones. And so I had a lot of fun, but if I look at it really seriously, I was incredibly instrumental in turning the industry over into its newest phase, which is where consumers are educated, doses are transparent. I got to educate the forefront of people talking to consumers on ingredient quality and formulas and stuff like that. It was a really rewarding process where I was actually working at a manufacturer because NutriBio manufactures in-house. I could turn around and look through a window and watch a protein bottling line at any point in the day. And at the time, I was the only person that gave tours of the facility other than Mark. So I became really closely articulate with manufacturing standards, testing, formulas. It was like the ultimate place to completely build a skill set. And then because of all the travel and because of all the networking, I am something of a bit of a talker. And I built the network, a lot of it that I have now, during my time at NutriBio. So I left NutriBio in 2019. I had a short stint at another company. And then basically, I was working with Mike, my business partner at NutriBio. And when I left NutriBio, I didn't tell him I had left, and I didn't tell him until I had signed my next deal. And he called me and said, "What the fuck? I wanted to hire you." And it was a huge compliment. And we had built a really great friendship. And so when I left the next company, I called him and I was like, "I'm ready. Let's do it." During all that time, I was running a lot of content for these brands. I was doing a lot of marketing campaigns. When I came to PricePlow, it was a one-man show for the most part for Mike. He had some people on and tested out different like other creators with him, but nothing had really stuck. And so when I came in to frankly like scale and monetize the company a lot more for like modern applications. Mike had done a great job of creating a really incredible brand name and a website that really ranked really well, but I wanted to scale us into content, like not just short form content because there was still more long form at the time, but like really becoming like a young voice in the industry and leveraging my network and expertise in a content platform. So that was when I started traveling to brands and doing on-site content and explaining formulas and doing these podcasts. At the time, no one was really doing this in supplements. I don't want to say I'm the only person that's ever done this, but I am like a huge consumer of content from other industries. Like in all of these other industries, there are these like mainstay faces and voices that are trusted by consumers and the brand, and they like weave this really well. And I was just inspired that if I had this network, I could become that next creator. I'm not as big as Joe Rogan. I can spur sales up for brands. I can start movements. I can create organic content. And we've been doing that for a little over 5 or 6 years now. 6 years, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like it was almost like a perfect timing type thing because around that time is really when social media started to pick up and people actually started to think of, oh, content creation, it's actually something that you can make a living doing.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun because it's like such an abstract concept. Like I have a voice, and so when I use it, I can do good with it, and with that good, I can support other people, and that can generate revenue. Obviously, we diversify it with a bunch of different stuff, with consulting and others, also data services and stuff that we do for brands. But at the end of the day, one of the big focuses has been, if we build an authoritative and informational, like educational voice, then that's monetizable and we can help people and put food on the table for all of our people in the process.
What do you feel like separates PricePlow and what we do from just like your typical fitness influencer who's reading labels, doing flavor reviews and et cetera, so forth?
When you say fitness influencer, this is a great question. I had to think about this a lot. In the course of like 2020 to 2021, there was a lot of controversy over content and sponsored content and stuff. And so I did a lot of introspection on like, why do we do content and what makes us different? So when you say normal fitness influencer, I think of Fit Babes or like whatever. And I think the difference from them is pretty stark. Obviously, we're like education forward and we don't always make the content that might be the most popular, but it is helpful. I think the big distinction between us and other people would be us against just reviewers. I try not to use the word review because review kind of infers that you're using the bottle all the way through and then giving feedback on how it felt. We make informational content. We dictate what is good and what is bad. We help people understand what they should be using and why they should be using it, which is why it's been such a pleasure to work with you, is you totally understand that. So I would say the biggest distinction really is just there is a message and an ongoing charter for PricePlow. We're pushing quality forward. We're unveiling new science, and we're helping the good people win as opposed to just making entertaining content.
Yeah, and I think that's really that's the coolest part about PricePlow is that there's so much depth to what we do as far as content. We'll post a green screen about Ghost dropping a new tasty flavor and what they're doing in the industry. And then the next post will be about cordyceps and diving into peptides or all of these different new ingredients that's coming out from NMB and things of that nature. So it's never just trendy, but it's always purposeful.
Yeah, growing up, I was just always friends with each friend group. I was never stuck to just one. I like sports just as much as I like playing music and making art. And so for me, I love making the nerdy stuff. I love representing the nerds, but then I also love that I get to turn around and give really authoritative content that Ghost trusts us to tell their story with. I really enjoy that we can both show new innovation, but also talk about business from a really mature standpoint, which I think is something I've really enjoyed about working with you is you always push for new ingredients and new innovation and stuff like that. But it's also really easy for you to communicate like why business decisions are made, because I'm sure you feel similarly. People come to us with questions all the time about why are things happening.
Correct.
And a lot of people are just looking to understand better.
Yeah. Or just complain.
There's that.
A lot of people just assume that, one specific scenario, since I'm looking at it, is this can, right? So it doesn't have the textured label that it used to have. And so many people are still bent out of shape about that. But then when you actually listen to Ryan Hughes talk about it, one of the founders of Ghost, he says it in a way like this was taking up so much of our dollars that we could put into getting more cans into your hands, doing new flavors, doing better things for the industry rather than just having a pretty looking can. I think these still look sick. I don't know.
Yeah. I love these conversations because I get to play both sides, because listen, my podcast is the first podcast that Ghost Energy was ever shown on, and I'm super
I
proud
actually
of that.
watched that episode a very long time ago before I started working with you guys. I loved your podcast and I loved looking at what Ghost is doing and what all these supplement brands are doing. And I remember watching that episode and being like, oh, that's actually really fucking cool.
I love those guys for those reasons. We get to do those things with those people, and people don't understand how organic and real that stuff is.
Yeah.
But I also love on the other side when we get to turn around and be devil's advocate and explain to people. I love textured cans. I love that so much. It's one of the coolest parts of Ghost. But people don't really think with their business heads, or they just have never been in this mindset where they have to understand to get Ghost in every single gas station across America is going to cost a lot of money. And so if we can deliver textured cans to 30% of America, or we can do a mixture of textured and print on can, and we can reach all of America, it's really easy for a lot of people at home behind a screen to say, oh, I'd make the virtuous decision. But the truth is that it really is the best for the health of the business to make some of these harder decisions. I was talking with someone the other day who was talking about sweeteners and how they recently decided to remove artificial sweeteners because it was a better decision for their health and their supplementation. And I was like, better for who, or better for why? And I don't know. That's just what I'm told. And I realized that a lot of times we make content assuming that people are already in the perspective that we are. And most people don't have the experience to really think that far in advance. So I constantly have to pull myself back when I'm making content and think, what is the perception of the normal consumer who's going to come across this video? And really talk to those people, because that was what took us from a 5,000 impression type company to millions per month. Here's a great example. That exact podcast that you're talking about, it was the Supplement Industry Roundtable. And there was a really great episode one time with a bunch of really intelligent individuals. And I sent it over to Dan Lorenzo, CEO of Ghost. And I was like, hey, this is what we did last night. I'd love for you to watch it. And he listened to it. It was like a 3-hour podcast that 15 people watched. And he goes, that was incredible. It was so informative, so interesting. I just have one question. If 15 people are watching this podcast to learn, where are the 2 million people who just want to know what creatine is going to go? And it kind of hurt my ego, because I want to make this super high level content with the most intelligent people, and I want to stroke everyone's ego with that stuff. But at the end of the day, the mission really is to spread as much awareness as possible. And the truth is, if I don't do it, someone else is going to. So we've a few times had to make decisions that maybe I've gotten hate for this in a similar way that Ghost has gotten hate for those cans, is if you go and search PricePlow on Anabolic Minds, you'll see all these old viewers of ours complaining about how we don't talk about illegal stimulants anymore. We don't talk about pro-hormones anymore. And, we're just wusses and we just want to pander to the FDA and stuff like that. But the truth is, for the health of our industry, for the growth of everyone, it was important that we clean up and really talk about the future of the industry. And you hung out with me at the Arnold. You saw people literally, the first thing they say to me is like, thank you for what you do.
Yep.
Which is really humbling and really sobering, because I'm just a guy in his office just talking shit on the internet about his passion. So you eventually realize you have a responsibility, and that kind of pushes you to make those decisions. We have to get this out to the masses.
And I think that's always a hard decision to make, because you never know sometimes in the moment you don't know what the right thing to say is. But at the end of the day, if it's doing something you're passionate about and spreading what you believe is the right thing. That's really all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I've had a great time having you join us because we get to talk about such niche issues that we see in our day-to-day life that most of your friends probably couldn't relate to. When we sit on a call and talk about this is the topic, but it's not really interesting. We have to find a way to make it interesting to people. Or most people are going to probably hate on this product, but we really want to show this one interesting thing over here. And how do we mitigate the amount of hate that we're going to get in the comments so that we can get to this interesting point over here? And it's been fun.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for anybody who's listening who wants to create content or does create content is that you're never going to please everybody. There's always going to be somebody who talks shit, regardless of what you say. It could be like the most perfect thought out speech, but there's always going to be somebody. And I think that we find that a lot in our content is some people just talk shit and they don't even know what they're talking about too.
That is the most frustrating part of it. I know I'm not famous by any means. I'm a big fish in a small pond. But some days I get these comments from people that are like, you don't even know anything about supplements. You're just you're just an Instagrammer. You've never done anything with supplements. And I'm like literally reading this comment in a meeting with a legislator talking about regulations around supplements. I'm like, this person has no clue. You have to realize these people are sitting on their phones at home and they're either jealous that you're speaking authoritatively on something and they'd never get onto a camera themselves, or they just have no clue.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things is they probably are jealous because they know that they couldn't do what you're doing. And again, they also some people just like to be right, even if they're not right. They like to try to be right.
Yeah, sponsored content is a tough place to be because there's a lot of people who have taken advantage of the system. And
absolutely.
There's a lot of people who have made a lot of money off of content that was very disingenuous. But at the end of the day, I remember I got into a fight with someone who I'm a very good friend with him now, Robbie from Apollon. But I remember there was a point when when we started growing and I could only do so much content and he was criticizing me for not making content for all these other companies. And frankly, they just weren't clients or partners of ours. So they just weren't on my list of tasks. At a certain point, you realize that people want you to make all the content they want to see, but they don't see your perspective about the fact that if my whole day is revolving around making content, at some point that has to help me put food on my table. And so I think we nail a pretty good mixture now of content for passion and content for business and content for the industry. I paid my own way to DC this week because I wanted to go make that content for everyone. But some days we got to go make content. This week we did this whole ashwagandha podcast because there's all this controversy in India, and the Ashwagandha Standards Alliance paid for the podcast. It helps the content get out there when people support the channel, and conveying that to people can be difficult. I think I said before in 2021, I got a lot of criticism from this. I don't want to say small reviewers. I don't want to reviewers that weren't trying to become big creators. There's different, exposure tiers in terms of views and stuff. And when you go from being like one of the boys who are like, we're just lifting in the garage and taking pre-workout together and making videos together, to then traveling to GNC and consulting for Ghost and doing this other stuff, it started creating some controversy. And I had to do a lot of thought for ourselves, like what are our values? What are our ethics? What is our goal? And that really only helped us more, honestly.
Yeah, integrity is really what all it comes down to. If you can feel proud of what you're doing and what you're supporting, like the way that I put it out is if I'm making money with my content, it's only on brands that I would actually stand behind and support. I'm never going to create a piece of content and genuinely lie about, oh, this is a great product when it's actually not.
Yeah. It's difficult. We say no to a lot of companies, so and that doesn't get put out there because I don't want to do that to people. But there's been a few situations where many years ago there was a company called Alpha Prime, AP. If you guys remember the Brownie Bites company, they used to have a pre-workout, and it was not a good pre-workout. And they reached out to me in a public comment section. They're like, "We want to send you this pre-workout." And I publicly told them, "You don't want to send me that pre-workout. It will not go well." And they got my address from someone and sent it to me, and I did a video about why I wouldn't take this pre-workout. And I turned it into a really positive video where we talked about proprietary blends, and I ended up helping them and consulting them to have some better formulas. But I don't know, I don't like doing negative things. Like negative videos only bring negative comments, and then I spend my whole weekend arguing with people on TikTok. And I like making positive videos, but unfortunately then get branded as someone who only talks good things about stuff. So it's a line to walk.
Oh, absolutely. So let's pivot a little bit into what you were doing this week, right? So you were in Washington, D.C., and that's something that people don't realize, right? Is we were kind of touching on it earlier is yes, you do some consulting yes, you help do content creation, but you actually are doing way more for the industry than people actually realize.
Yeah, I'm really proud of this one, and I sometimes take it for granted, and then I've recognized that most people don't do this. Most people don't get the access to it. But so I run a nonprofit called Future Nutra with Joey Savage. The last 2 years, I got to go down to DC a few times, part of Future Nutra. But PricePlow has also been a member of the Natural Products Association in the past, where we got to do their fly-in day. Every year, at least once, I'm trying to go 3 times this year, I go down to Washington, D.C. to meet with legislators and talk about the regulation around supplements. This year, we had a bill in the Senate called the Mandatory Product Listing Bill, which is basically trying to make it so that every supplement that comes to market has to be routed through the FDA and individually approved before it goes to market. But then we also have this issue across America where different states are making state-specific legislation to restrict supplement sales. So we're working with the House to create a bill that would make that more uniform across America. But that's only this year's specific. That one of the big messages I try to talk about when people ask me about DC is that, first off, everyone tries to say that supplements are not regulated. It couldn't be further from the truth. Not only are supplements and what you can have in them regulated, but the manufacturing around them is regulated. For anyone who's listening and doesn't believe me, they can look up the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 2004. FDA's CFR 111 governs a lot of the manufacturing. You can also look at the FD&C Act, which goes over a lot of the marketing claims and labeling. There are a lot of different ways that supplements are regulated. The main issue is lack of enforcement of those regulations. I laugh a lot when people talk about how their supplements are third-party tested as if it's some sort of virtuous thing that's required by law. You're supposed to do that. It's not special. But I go down to DC every year to help educate legislators on supplements, to help ask them for help for our trade associations to support us with bills that we're trying to pass, and to ask the FDA to enforce the regulations a little bit more. Right now, with the MAHA movement, nutrition, longevity, and health are a little more on the forefront of discussions, which is a good thing. Not everything that MAHA has done has been something I'm proud of or a fan of, but the conversation is louder, which is really great for all of us because we're at least having a conversation about health and nutrition. So if anyone in the supplement industry or involved is interested in this stuff, I'd recommend reaching out to Future Nutra through us. We could get people involved with DC. We're looking to bring more people down to DC every year and try to get more people involved. This year's NPA Flying Day, which is what I did this week, was the largest one in the history of the supplement industry. So we have more we have more representation than ever, and we get more recognition going into these offices than ever. We have people who the thing you might not understand about DC, which is really fun, is that when you sit down in these legislators' offices, most often you're not going to really sit down with the actual congressman or senator. I do get to do that sometimes, but most of the time you're going to sit down with staffers who are like 22-year-old kids. They just graduated college with a poli-sci degree. But these kids are who run Washington, D.C.
That's wild.
Yeah, they listen to people like us, and then they go tell the legislators how they should vote. So I'll sit down with someone who's a legislative assistant for their health affairs, and I'll give them information on supplements, and then they'll go inform the senators and congressmen. So it's a lot of fun. It is really a lot of fun. I'd love to bring you down sometime. There's a lot of responsibility when you're sitting in those chambers. It's, oh my God. I'm just here to talk about protein powders.
What made you start Future Nutra or start this venture?
So Future Nutra is, for one, honestly, I will say a little selfishly to me, a way that I get to work with Joey Savage. Joey's like a fun partner of PricePlow's, but he never really gets to work with us officially. And we've been trying to game plan some sort of fun merger someday. I don't think I've ever said that publicly, but I'll put it here if anyone's listening. But Future Nutra is a nonprofit that serves to test products off shelf. Last year, we did a test on electrolyte products in the market and released all the test results. So that's one thing that we do is test products off market. Number two is we stand for advocacy. So we go down to DC frequently where we work with trade associations. A big distinction of what we do, rather opposed to other companies, is that we are a nonprofit consumer advocacy group. Most of the other groups that we work with are trade associations, so they represent the companies. We advocate for consumers, so we differentiate ourselves a little bit there. And the last thing is we have a focus on education. So we want to take all of these things and educate people through them. But in September of this year, we are launching something called the Future Nutra Innovation Summit, which is an expo in Houston. It's going to be a 3-day innovation event where we have people talking about new sciences, new ingredients, new brands. It's going to be hosted at Margaritaville in Houston, where we're going to have anyone from retailers like the ones that you love to brands to ingredient providers, flavor houses, and manufacturers. It's going to be like a one-stop shop for anyone in supplements or foods or beverages to come and meet other people of who you'd expect to see like in a PricePlow comment section, basically.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think one of the coolest parts about shows like that is not only looking at what is new in the industry, what innovation is coming around, but also just networking with people.
Yeah. What we felt like we did with this show is we looked at all the things we loved about all these other shows, because Joey and I go to pretty much every show out there, whether it's Supply Side or the Arnold or Expo West. There's a show in California called the Sports and Active Nutrition Summit that inspired us a lot. And what we found is that each one of them has a strength, and then it has areas that we felt like we could improve on in our own show. And so it's not meant to be competitive with other shows. We actually really specific to only pick days that we think that people won't be at any other show, so we don't want to hurt anyone. But we want a show that it's going to be under 1,000 people, but it's going to be a tight-knit group of trailblazers surrounding around education. The core of the show was inspired by a TED Talk style where you can sit down and learn a ton of things. We're going to have 4 different tracks that break down. You can learn about like communications and marketing. You can learn about regulatory affairs and manufacturing quality, or you learn about innovation and biodiversity. So you can really come and know that you're going to leave learning something from someone that you wouldn't have learned about elsewhere. We felt that at other shows, education and talks are always like an afterthought of a way to sell packages. A lot of times you sit down for a talk and it's really just a segment of someone who paid to speak to people. And we want to really, the Apple does their big events where they show off their new innovations, or in Marvel, Tony Stark has his show where he shows off all of his new technology. We really want to show that people are excited to go to and meet people at, because to your point, networking is the real reason you go to these shows, is to meet
100%.
people.
That's really the biggest reason why I went to the Arnold. Yes, it was fun, but my biggest thing was like, I want to meet as many people as possible here.
Yeah. So we feel like, I feel like I could get some validation from here. I think I'm pretty good at introducing people to other people.
100%.
This whole idea is to get all these people onto this resort and have the brands that are going to sell to the retailers, and have the ingredient providers that are going to sell to the brands, and then have all these people just like ferment in this, in this location for 3 days straight. And I think it's going to be a really fun time. We're having fun putting it together, frankly.
I bet. Yeah. With all that, what are some, I know you've been to a couple shows already this year, like Supply Side, the Arnold. What are some things that you're most excited for innovation wise that you see happening in the industry, or where do you see things going?
I think, like, if I could sum it all up, the thing I'm most excited about is people are becoming more interested in seeking out function from the things they consume. Now, you could talk about functional beverages like energy drinks. I'll always remember 2 years ago at Jiu-Jitsu, this guy came up to me and he's, when I drink Monsters or Reign, I get good energy. But when I drink Gorilla Minds or Ghosts, I get different energy. Is it supposed to be a different feeling? And I was like, yes. And that is proof that it actually works. Because that is, I think, like such a perfect snapshot of that transition. And it's cool because now people are buying foods that have added benefits. People are seeking out creatine monohydrate for more than muscles. People are looking at all these different things. And the final kind of like risque comment to it is that very normal people are now injecting peptides in themselves.
Yes.
We can talk about safety and all that, and I'll do the mature and responsible thing if necessary. But what that really tells me is that people are really opening their minds to this idea that we can improve our lifestyle through products like this.
Yeah, I think people are more open than ever about being healthier. Unfortunately, a lot of people are trying to find, as usual, let me look for the other way rather than the foundational, just hard work. But at the end of the day, those things, they're meant for a reason. They can fill gaps, they can enhance things, but the work never, or the supplements never outdo the work.
Yeah. I think it's just if we're being realistic, you're right. People should work on their diet and their sleep and their training first. And that's definitely the fundamentals. Unfortunately, not everyone is like we are, and a lot of people will, whatever, that's fine. I started playing. I've been taking peptides for a while. I'm not new to them, but I played with some of them recently just because I wanted to be more knowledgeable when I spoke on them because it's a big topic that we're talking about a lot. And I kind of came to this realization, trying one GLP, it just made my life easier.
Yeah,
Like I
because it
was,
just blocks out like all the food noise basically, and you're not even thinking about it.
yeah, I have no problem cutting. Food noise does not bother me.
Yeah.
I can just not eat if I don't if I have a goal. But if I don't even have to think about it, I'm not saying I never cheat. There's a certain percentage of me where I'm like, whatever, I'll have this. It's not a big deal. I don't even have that like that temptation.
Yeah.
Um, and so to me, I started realizing my mom lost 38 pounds over the course of like probably I think like 14 months. It was a real easy, long loss. And it just makes my life easier. I can have a nice, slow weight loss journey without really having to worry too much. And I think that if we can improve people's lifestyles and help their health, then who are we to judge those people?
I
Like,
agree. I think that people look at it as a lot of people in my industry, as far as like personal training and stuff, they always look at it as, oh, if you're taking a GLP-1, you're cheating. And I completely disagree with that. I think it's a tool, and some people need a tool, but also to what you're saying, it just makes things a lot easier. So if we're not going to make it easier, like, why not?
yeah, yeah, I'm conflicted on it because
Yeah.
I've done
There's
many
good and
cuts.
bad.
Yeah, I've done some really successful cuts without any of this stuff. And so for me, it's like, here's just like another lever I can pull. I got lean in probably half the amount of time this year because I was using a GLP. It was easier and faster. But I don't know. To me, it's just like an overarching message that people are willing to seek more function in their lifestyle, which is
Yes.
really cool. We asked a few years ago at Supply Side, we did this live podcast, and we were asking a lot about like consumers starting to put things in their foods like creatine or
Mhm.
cognizin. And I think that it may not have been as literal as like a focus ingredient going into your food that you eat before focus. Things that just improve your lifestyle overall are becoming more popular. Creatine
Yeah.
gummies.
Oh my gosh, they're exploding.
Yeah.
Creatine, period, exploding, which huge fan of that. Love seeing like just my clients who like I've never discussed supplements with be like, yes, I've been taking creatine for a year. And I'm like, that's fucking great. I'm glad
Yeah.
you're doing that. Right. And then I had another client the other day who was like, I started taking like 10 to 15 grams a day and I feel unbelievable. I was like, awesome, cool. Like, I didn't even need to tell you that, you
It's
know?
so cool. I don't know. And this is again where I see this dichotomy in our industry where we can't get
Right.
ahead of ourselves because on one hand, I'm so stoked that people are trying creatine that I'm willing to turn a blind eye to the gummy thing.
Yeah.
But then I see on the other hand, I see these creators online really dogging on people for using creatine gummies because you can just use a powder. But
Some
I,
people won't. That's the thing. I know people who I've had clients. My mom is a good example. My sister-in-law is another great example. They just don't take the powder. They don't remember to take it. They fucking hate taking it. They hate the grit. They take
yeah,
the gummies and they enjoy taking it. So great, you're taking your creatine. That's what I care about.
yeah. I just think people who think so black and white in that
Yes.
way are only holding ourselves back. I oftentimes think about the growth of the industry. I If creatine grows to be something on Walmart and Target shelves that isn't a corner of the pharmacy, it becomes a main consumer packaged good, then that money coming into our industry gets spread around to a whole bunch of different really cool things. The data around creatine will be better funded. We'll get to learn
Mhm.
more about creatine because of it. There are so many benefits to just allowing creatine gummies to exist and not complaining about it because we can grow everyone so much more. I used to be like that. I was a really hardcore powerlifter for a long time. I was
Yeah.
280 pounds. If you didn't train heavy, I didn't respect you. And
Hmm.
eventually I realized what a conceited position that is to feel that way. And that's when I became so much more okay with so much more in supplements. Once you start to realize some of these companies are not going to make that $100 pre-workout that you think that everyone needs to take, and we can be okay with C4 being used by mainstream people because it'll give them a pump and a focus. Like if we can let go of our egos and this need to constantly be super hardcore athletes and recognize that other people can come into this space, that's the biggest thing for helping our industry grow.
I think not intimidating people is the biggest thing. So if like
Yeah.
people, a lot of people in our industry, they argue online about little fucking nitty gritty stuff and they're completely missing the mark of No, we're just trying to educate the consumer who doesn't understand anything about supplements onto why this is going to benefit them and why it can improve their life. So if two creators are like, no powder, creatine gummies, all this, and then people just get confused and they're like, I'm just not doing anything now.
Yeah. I find this recently with hydration products. I see so many people
Oh my
talking
God, I
about
see so many people saying, oh, you get enough sodium. I'm like, that's not the point.
I saw someone say that they heard that there's a rumor that there's an unprecedented amount of renal failure in people abusing sodium products.
That's wild.
I was
That's
like,
wild because that's not fucking true. My mom went to the hospital 3 times over a year and a half period because she grew up in the era of sodium is bad for you. And then she was taking blood pressure medication, and her doctor also gave her a water pill and told her not to salt anything. So she goes in, she has extremely low levels of sodium. So I started having her take Element, 1,000 milligrams of sodium once or twice a day, and she barely salts her food. So like sometimes if she's not taking it twice a day, she'll go back into the doctor. She has low sodium. It's because sodium is an essential electrolyte. People don't understand how detrimental it can be if you have low levels of that. And if you're eating a lot of whole foods, if you're sweating, if you're active, if you're drinking a lot of water, you're not getting sodium unless you're salting your food.
there was a really interesting review in 2015. You can tell I've been arguing about this recently because I can remember that the lowest amount of cardiac attack risk was in people consuming 3 to 5 grams of sodium a day. It is not. I have two conversations that I want to have when people talk about this. My first knee-jerk reaction is to explain why sodium is not that dangerous and it's actually pretty helpful. Just like you said, it's actually pretty important. But then my other side of this is that there are sick people who shouldn't consume multiple packets of Element a day. That's okay to say. But those people existing does not make an ingredient on its own inherently less safe. That's my problem. Is fear mongering over sodium just is not, it's ill placed. Anyone who should be afraid of sodium should be more so concerned about their lack of physical activity and poor diet. Like there are very few normal, healthy people, if any, who should be afraid of a hydration product. Now, I do also recognize that Element is a very high sodium product, and normal consumers probably should be reaching something that has a higher potassium to sodium ratio. I'll understand that. But I think that this perspective comes from a lack of understanding that the normal human isn't what it should be. Like normal status for me, in my opinion, I think the average human should be running, jumping, and moving on a daily basis. And that person could probably benefit from a supplementation of electrolytes.
I find that a lot of times if my clients aren't taking electrolytes and they're following, like I said, a whole food diet or mostly whole foods, they're eating some processed foods, but nothing crazy. They're working out, they're moving. And I have clients who work on their feet all day. If they don't take electrolytes, they feel like shit.
Yeah. Mild amounts of dehydration can lead to huge drops in performance, whether that's mental or physical.
And I've absolutely been there where you think it's a blood sugar thing, but it's not. It's a sodium thing.
Yeah, I just think that this idea of halting good conversation around a helpful ingredient because some people are unfit is absolutely asinine. For the vast majority of healthy people, supplementing electrolytes is a great idea. And I think when we focus so much on sodium, we start to demonize hydration products, and then we unfortunately catch this crossfire on magnesium and potassium, which it's ironic that we're bitching about hydration supplements and how much people consume because almost everyone underconsumes magnesium and potassium.
Yes.
And if you pick up something like Ghost Hydration, none of this is even applicable. It's a higher potassium to sodium ratio. It's got magnesium in there. There are all these things that if you're just watching some guy's content and hating on electrolytes because of sodium, you'd miss out on all these other benefits.
Absolutely. And I think that just goes down to there's just a lot of fear mongering and people demonizing ingredients for no good reason. One example would be like I have a reel that took off with me breaking down what's in a Ghost energy drink, telling people that energy drinks aren't killing you. And of course, all the people in the comments are like, oh, but they are. And they can't tell me why. Or they're like, oh, the artificial sweeteners or, oh, they're the taurine. And it's like, you don't even understand the research behind the amount of artificial sweeteners that you would have to consume. You would have to, you would be dealing with toxicity from water or caffeine before that point. And when it
I,
comes to caffeine, it's just don't be an idiot, you know?
yeah. Yeah. I take all these devil advocate perspectives on stuff because, like,
Yes, it's important to.
I think it's important too, because when people start feeling like they're right about everything and talking a lot about stuff, I feel like I have to like keep everyone in check. When
Yes.
caffeine has a ridiculous safety profile, like it's been tested at some very high dosages that people have no recognition of.
It's
And
one of
that,
the most researched ingredients with creatine.
yeah, absolutely. I took 1,400 milligrams of it before I squatted 705 pounds. Like,
Yeah.
it, the real benefits of it for strength and endurance come at something like 6 milligrams per kilogram, which admittedly would make most people pretty uncomfortable. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
that everyone's going to do it, but when we make really blanket statements, like I'll give you an example of this. At one point when I was early at Price, I used to say, this ingredient doesn't do anything. I said that in a video, and I remember Mike called me and he was like, I understand what you're saying here, but you can't say that because nothing doesn't do anything. Everything does something. But for this goal, it might not help you for this goal. But if we're talking about magnesium oxide, which is basically crushed up bones, it's not very useful for sleep or anything, but it is useful for something. It does do something. It is a source of magnesium. And so when you get really black and white and say something works or it doesn't, you hurt the entire conversation overall. And unfortunately, what I've really found is that most consumers are so surface level that if they were to watch a video about creatine monohydrate, and it could be any niche topic on it, they might walk away with just saying, oh, creatine monohydrate doesn't work. I watched a video that says it doesn't work. Well, that's not what we were saying. We were talking about you should put it in warm water so that it dilutes better and you can absorb, you can drink it more comfortably, right? A lot of people miss the details and the nuance.
Oh yeah, 100%. In that video specifically, people were saying, "Oh, I don't have time for that. I just dry scoop it." And I'm like, "Great, if that works for you, cool." But I'm not saying that it's not absorbing properly. I'm saying that some people don't have time for stomach aches, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Anytime you try to share nuance, I find that it's very unpopular because people want to hear what they want to hear, is what I've
Oh yeah.
realized.
Yeah, and I think specifically when it comes to energy drinks, people just assume because it has caffeine, high amounts. First of all, 200 milligrams of caffeine isn't a high amount of caffeine. A lot of people are drinking more caffeine from coffee.
When Ghost came out, we marketed it with them as a low caffeine energy drink.
I think 200 is the sweet spot. Anything over 200 is just nah.
Well, at the time, Bang was big, and it was 300 for every
Yeah,
flavor.
Bang blew up, and then super creatine isn't real apparently.
Yeah. I just love that people are talking about it. That is my favorite part of it.
And I think it's making the industry better because, for example, you look at Ghost Can, it's completely transparent. We know exactly what's in it. We know the amounts of the ingredients. And I think that a lot of brands that are up and coming, I start to see, oh, they're starting to use transparency as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
I just love seeing new brands, new formulas, or new viewers, or anyone in the industry who just understands what we're talking about. Because like I said, when I was traveling around America, going to these GNC stores and meeting with managers, some of them didn't know what a proprietary blend was. Like, some of them didn't know about whey protein sources and the differences between concentrate and isolate and the percentages. Every couple of months, we would just do videos exposing different scams that no one had spoken about. And now all those things are like common knowledge on the internet. And so it's really cool to see the adoption of just intelligence in the space.
What do you feel like as far as this year goes? What are you most excited for?
I'm really excited for this show that we're putting on, honestly.
Yeah. When is that going to be? You said September?
September 9th through the 11th. I don't really want to act like we're competing with any other show because it is so different from what anyone else is doing. And we're trying to invite all of the other shows to come be a part of it. But it is truly something that it does not exist elsewhere. And for a long time, we joked about doing something, the Sturgis of supplements. Are you familiar with Sturgis?
No.
Sturgis, it's a motorcycle meetup. It's a week in South Dakota every year where people literally ride their motorcycles from all across America to South Dakota to go to this event. And we wanted to do that for a few years where it's literally just bringing together good people. And this type of thing wouldn't have been possible years before. So that's what I'm most excited about is just like you said, the timing and the opportunities of things that are being offered to PricePlow it's just a really awesome time where people are interested in information and education and newness to the space.
And one of my last questions for you is, what do you feel like right now is something in supplements that you wish didn't exist, or something that you feel like is not good about the industry? Or is there anything?
It's a great question. I try to put negative things out of my head because I used to just scream into the ether on the internet and complain
Negativity.
about people. What'd you say?
I said negativity.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. I guess negativity is the thing I wish there was less of.
That's a fact.
There's a lot of people who complain constantly. There's a lot of people talking a lot on the internet, and there's a lot of people posturing. But Instagram is like this big highlight reel. All of social media is.
Oh yeah.
People want to show off their Lambos. They don't want to show off the losses that they've taken. So I think if we can continue to improve transparency and work together more, one of the things I have found is like when we beat the FDA on lawsuits and stuff, it's because people came together and sacrificed for the industry. A couple years ago, we had to fight really hard for an ingredient called NMN. Really cool. I'm doing a video after this podcast. Cellucor has NMN in a product now. This ingredient was banned a few years ago.
I did a video on oh my God, NMN, right?
Yeah.
I did. So you did a video. So I do one for TikTok. So I did one reacting to yours. And oh my God, the amount of takes that it took for me to say NMN.
Yeah.
It's hard, bro.
I have been talking about it for years. So I have like
Rolls
reps
off the tongue easier.
Yeah. You could, what is it, nicotinamide mononucleates or something like that? Sometimes.
Probably easier for me to say that.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes it's easier to say that stuff. But we fought really hard on that. We went to DC a few times about that stuff. And that really only happened because Now Foods put up millions of dollars to fight with it. And that's hard to get across to people, that if we are worried about losing things in the space to regulatory and laws and stuff like that, it takes people working together in DC to fix it. It does not take social media posts for the most part. That probably is ironic coming from the social media creator, but it really does come from actual boots on the ground and work. And I'm a little bit worried in the next year about this mandatory product listing act that could get passed. I'm a little bit worried about, if it passes, how bad it could hurt us. I think you're going to see, if this act passes, people like Ghost won't be able to come out with really fun new products as quickly and easily as they want to. And the small companies definitely probably won't. I think in the end, it'll probably even out as people and their lawyers start to learn the processes and stuff. But our industry doesn't really need more impediments to innovation. We're already held behind the drug and the food industries. So that's one thing that I'm worried about.
Yeah, I think, like you said in the beginning, is a lot of people think that there's literally no regulation and the supplement is the Wild West, but it truly isn't like that anymore. There's not meth in any of our products, not that I know of, like there used to be. As you sent me a text this morning, are you Jacked 3D? What made you think about Jacked 3D?
The godfather of DMAA,
oh, shoot. Yeah.
He passed away recently. And I was thinking about you on TikTok. DMA and Jack 3D is such a big thing. I don't know if a lot of TikTokers know who Patrick Arnold was, but I felt like his
might be too young.
Probably, but I felt like I did a carousel post for him today, kind of talking about the things that he dared to do, which is really incredible. And I think that those accomplishments might speak to those younger TikTok users. I have a fun time dealing with this young crowd on TikTok and Instagram, because while I don't relate to them in many ways, we share a lot of beliefs. And so anytime you talk about DMAA or Jack 3D or pro hormones, people love to
usually get people excited about that.
Yeah. But it's funny because you and I are closer in age than I remember sometimes, but there are these distinct generations of people in fitness.
Yes.
What was the first pre-workout you took?
Damn, probably just a random C4.
Yeah. I remember distinctly.
LU Core, yeah.
No Explode, C4.
Yep.
Muscle Farm.
Yep. All those good things. Yeah. And very different, just so different. Even I think people are very spoiled today for protein powder specifically. Like whenever I review a protein powder, even if it's a very basic protein powder, it's pretty good. To me, this is phenomenal because I grew up drinking chalk.
I think people who criticize us for enjoying flavors, I've reviewed so many flavors in my day that it's just a process. I'm going to get hate for some of them, but I don't think they realize that we are in just such a state of gratitude that I can be drinking Muscle Sport flavors instead of Joe Weider, chalky chocolate. We are so spoiled.
Oh, so spoiled. I remember when I would go and get the big ass tubs from Vitamin Shoppe and it'd be like, hold my nose to get it down, or Muscle Milk. And now it's, I have little Oreo cookies in my protein powder.
So I'm on a cut right now, and I was drinking a Lucky Charms protein the other night, and I was like, as I'm guzzling down these sugar containing little pieces, I'm like, is it good or bad that I'm drinking this on a cut? Like, should I really be cutting this out? Should I be like holding myself more accountable with the sugar in here? Or should I just enjoy these 3 grams of sugar?
It's the little things.
The fact that's a conversation I'm having with myself is great, because like it means I'm really close to my calories, and there's little things that I'm looking at.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that's the message that I think a lot of people miss, is that those little, listen, I'm not getting on a bodybuilding stage, so those little sugar cubes are not bothering me.
Yeah. I think on this topic, I do want to ask, what are some of the best protein powders that you've ever had? Give me top 3. I know it's a hard question.
I'm going to piss off people.
Okay.
Just like all time, I'll give 3. 2 that are current, and 1 that it's probably still good, but I haven't had it in a while, and it's legendary to me. Ghost and Muscle Sport. You can't go wrong with any of their flavors on protein.
Yeah, agree.
But Nutrex ISO, ISO Fit, I think it was. They were the first place I saw that added MCTs to a protein, so a little bit of fat, which made it creamy. Max Fairchild did the flavoring back then. And it's just always been an incredibly creamy, delicious protein. I haven't had it in a while. My sister is one of their graphic designers now. She works there, which is really cool. I'm proud of. But yeah, I feel like everyone can agree Ghost and Muscle Sport are like hits out of the park. And if you really want to go in, Muscle Sport Gourmet takes it to another level.
I can't believe the amount of inclusions. I literally opened up the lemon raspberry wedding cake one and had my husband, because I like, smell this tub of protein. And he literally reached in and just takes out half a fucking Oreo and just ate it. It's like, what incredible.
It's insane. It's so cool. I had such a fun time at their headquarters flavoring products with them.
Oh, I bet. That's definitely next time I visit New York and visit family, definitely want to go there.
Yeah, they're a must stop at place. Where is your family in New York? Is it out on that?
In Queens. In Queens, in Rockaway Beach, so pretty close to Long Island, like right by Long Beach.
Yeah. I'm pretty familiar with that. That's near Natural Body.
Yeah. Yeah. There's actually a Natural Body in Ozone Park that's 20 minutes probably from where I grew up.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. I knew you were from New York. I didn't know that you were from city New York.
Yeah, I'm from legit New York, not fake New York. Awesome. Well, Ben, I appreciate you being on the podcast. Just go ahead, plug your Instagram and where people can find you.
Yeah, my Instagram is the Sup, a little nickname that my old boss, Mark Glazier, owner of NutriBio, gave me. You can also find me on PricePlow, pretty much anywhere. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Yours is TikTok.
But I'm TikTok.
Yeah. But the Sup Bouncer. If you're into this stuff, LinkedIn, you can find me Benjamin Kane there. That's a whole different subset of my content that I never talk about, but a different side of me there. But thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And everybody listening, go out and do one thing that's going to take you one step closer to where you want to be.